Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for the third and final part of the Q&As for the week, so let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, first question. Hi Jason, hope you're having a great day. What would be the best way to test your new maxes after a training cycle, for example, your intermediate program? Something like amrap with 85% previous max. Thanks. I'm having an okay day. Nova ate my pillow. There's feathers all over the bedroom, but outside of that, everything's going good. So, to answer your question, yeah, I think that's a good way to test your maxes. You could also work with 90% of your previous max and calculate off that, but I think 85% is a good number to get a 1-rep max estimate if you're going to work off percentages for a new training cycle of block periodization like my intermediate program. Yeah, I think that would work perfectly fine. You know, and hopefully if the cycle went well, you will pick up 1 extra rep, meaning whatever you did with your 85% last time, hopefully you'll pick up 1 rep on it, which would be, you know, a successful cycle for a late intermediate. For an early intermediate, obviously you're going to go up more. We're going to hope to see a 5 to 10% increase across the board your first time through it. But after that, you know, if you can pick up a rep on each one, that would be ideal. But yeah, that's a great way to test it. All right, next question. Hi, Jason. It makes sense that conjugate periodization as practiced by Westside uses exercise variants that are more difficult at lockout because they match the strength curve of the geared lifts. However, could a raw lifter run Westside-like conjugate, but with exercises that are more difficult out of the hole, i.e. pause, squat, deficit, deads, etc.? Could this be the way to successfully run conjugate raw? As always, thanks for the great content. You know, they do have recommendations for raw lifters. Again, I'm not a fan for raw lifters to run the conjugate method. I think it works great for equipped lifters. I don't think we can challenge that notion. It's been successfully run by plenty of world champions. So, back to your question, no, you would need really kind of a different template completely. Because I don't think their speed work and dynamic effort work is going to work as well as you might want. What I might recommend is either you do high volume triples with paused work on something like that, or you could even do more traditional hypertrophy work using even 5s or 8s or 10s. Although again, for a strength athlete, I might lean back in the direction of something like 5s at the highest rep for that. Then again, you could still run phases to where your non-max effort days are still, you know, traditional thought of as hypertrophy and volume blocks for the accumulation. I mean, so you could do it that way and then rotate through max effort exercises. But the thing you're going to run into, as far as the max effort exercises go, it's going to be a little trickier to do for the raw lifter if you want to follow their exact concept of changing through and only running each exercise no more than once every 6 weeks. Again, you could pull it off as long as the other days are 100% paused work. Meaning so that you can build power out of the bottom. So yeah, you're going to want to do traditional paused lifts in replace of the dynamic effort days if you wanted to try to run a similar system. But again, it's going to end up being so dramatically different from the Westside conjugate method if you do this that you really don't want to call it that, because it's not. You're running off the same concept of their concurrent style periodization, but with a totally different focus. So it really wouldn't be the same thing. But yeah, you could certainly do that. And even what I'm running right now for myself is still a 4-day-a-week, virtually upper-lower, similar to an upper-lower, very similar concept of what they do. But what you need to remember is that there are a lot of programs out there that coaches use that follow the same sort of variation that I'm doing. Which again is the same basic idea of what I think you're looking for here. All right, next question. Hi Jason, after several years of nonsense training, I finally decided to actually start a proper program. At 6 foot tall and 70 kilos, I am clearly still a novice. I like the look of your beginner program for non-athletes, but unfortunately, due to budget issues, I am forced to train at home for the time being and can't afford to buy new equipment at the moment. We have a 2-year-old son, and I don't earn much money in my job. I only have plate-loaded dumbbells and a flat dumbbell bench. Could you recommend a good dumbbell program to get started? I really hope you answer this, as it's probably the first sensible question I've asked. Thanks. You know what I might recommend? You're going to be really limited with weights on dumbbells. What you need to get is find yourself some big, heavy, awkward objects to put in the backyard or the garage or somewhere in your home. Until you can get access to proper barbells and equipment, you need to find big, heavy stuff to pick up. You know what I actually might recommend that you do? See if you can find a copy online or go or order a copy of, I think his name is Brooks Kubrick's, something like that. I forget the guy's name. But it's a book called Dinosaur Training. And for someone who's really on a tight budget with a new child, they can't afford to get in a gym, they can't afford new equipment. Look at what he does in there. Just a lot of stuff, just picking up big, heavy, awkward objects in your yard. It looks kind of funny when you read it, but when you realize for someone who's in your situation, if you can just find a way to get a hold of some awkward things like some old engine blocks and other stuff, big heavy objects that you can basically carry around the yard and pick up, or big rocks and things, that might actually be a better option for you, or some logs. Again, just throwing it out there as a possible option. You could also, of course, save up and buy a cheap Olympic set to maybe keep outside in the once you get a little more money. So, you have options there, because the problem you're going to have is that as a healthy man, you're never going to get enough weight on dumbbells to actually train yourself effectively. It's just not going to happen. Again, because you're going to end up being more expensive than with a good Olympic set, trying to set up to get heavy enough dumbbells to get anything reasonable done. To even get anywhere near getting out of the novice phase. All right, next question. Hey, Jason. You have previously mentioned that carbs before a workout tends to increase performance. I work a full-time job where I eat lunch around 1 p.m. then lift at 6 p.m. Would it make a difference if I had more carbs in between that time? And if so, would convenient carbs like fruit juices or Gatorade do the trick? Thanks for the content. Yeah, it depends. When we talk about carbs like that, a lot of times people say you don't want to eat, again, a lot of the really sugary or highly processed things, even like Gatorade. But if you're not struggling with fat gain, it's totally acceptable. Yeah, electrolyte drinks, fruit juice, whatever you need just to get some extra carbs in between wouldn't be a bad idea. Just remember, though, fructose isn't as useful to you, and that's going to comprise a certain percentage of those carbs as glucose-based carbs are for your performance. So, here's what you could do. You could try to get us some sandwiches in. Keep some extra starchy carbs nearby at work that you could kind of snack on a little bit before you get into that 6 p.m. session. Bread, rice cakes, anything like that. I mean, there's different sorts of pastries and breads and things that you could definitely have around. Just be creative with it. Pretty much anything will work. And like I said, worst case scenario, if that's what you have to do, is just drink some Gatorade and sports drinks beforehand. That'll probably help a bit. But if you can get access to a little more starchy carbs of any type, wouldn't be a bad idea. It would probably serve you a bit better. All right, next question. Hey, Jason. For an active individual, what is the upper limit to safely consume carbs on a daily basis? I am a 179 pounds active man. I'm consuming a little over 500 grams of carbs daily, mostly from starchy carbs, while getting the necessary protein, fats, and fiber in, and want to know if I should be cutting back a bit, since I heard that high carb ingestion can increase the likelihood of chronic hyperglycemia and hyperinsulinemia, and cause a decline in the insulin sensitivity. All right, brother, what you've heard is actually a lie. That's a myth, comes out of the bodybuilding world, comes out of paleo and keto diet or mythology. You go talk to a medical doctor who's into training, or a registered dietitian, and they're going to tell you that in athletic people, they do not see this happen. It doesn't happen. Do you know why it happens in the bodybuilding world? Because of the drugs. Too much insulin, too much IGF-1 being injected. That's what causes this to happen with the high carb intakes. It's not the carbs they're eating, it's the drugs they're injecting with it. Again, in athletic people, unless you are gaining large amounts of body fat, you do not see a reduction in insulin sensitivity based upon carbohydrate intake. The only time you see athletic people who are active and gaining muscle see these problems occur is either it's drug related or they're gaining too much body fat too quickly, right? It's a sign you have excessive body fat. And again, it's not the carbs that are to blame, it's the excess calories at a certain point. And the reality is, just cutting back your carbs, if you replace those same carb calories with fat calories, you're going to actually make the problem even worse. So what are you going to do? Not eat carbs? I wouldn't worry about it. If you're not obese due to body fat, and you're not injecting insulin and or IGF-1, this is not a real issue. This doesn't actually happen. There aren't documented cases of it. Again, I wouldn't worry about it. All right, next question and last question of the week. When rebuilding your squat after a long layoff, 1 year, is it a good idea to start with elevated heels, standing on plate/shoes, since flexibility is a big issue? Also, strength loss is quite apparent. Thanks. Well, did you guys see me go straight into shoes? Yeah, I went into squat shoes pretty quick again when I started squatting again. Yeah, go ahead and go back to your squat shoes. If you don't have a pair of squat shoes, use flat foot. Use Chucks or boots or something, and that's fine. But if you plan on squatting in shoes later, you need to go ahead and start squatting again in shoes. Now, as far as elevated heel with plates, I'm going to reiterate what I've always reiterated with that. Do not stand on plates. It's stupid. It's moronic. It will get you hurt. Squat shoes exist for a reason. Squat shoes and weightlifting shoes exist for a reason. Doing the stupid thing of standing on your plates like a goofy-ass bodybuilder or gym bro increases your risk of injury. And you're increasing your risk of injury trying to get 1 extra inch of depth. That's it. That's the reason you do it. You get a little less knee slide. It allows your hips in some cases to open up more so you can get about 1 inch deeper. This is not worth standing on plates for and risking hurting yourself. So either do it in total flat-footed shoes or go ahead and get a pair of squat shoes or weightlifting shoes. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.